What's going on, guys? This is Lior and welcome back to my channel. Now, what I thought I would do in this video is talk about how my underwriting of multifamily is different in 2022. Obviously, we are now in a brand new environment given the new interest rate hikes. There's obviously a big change in the financial environment. So my underwriting has changed, and I thought I would talk about 3 specific metrics that I really focus on in terms of how I think about them today and how they impact my underwriting of new multifamily acquisitions. So with that, let's get at it. What's going on, guys? My name is Lior and welcome back to my channel. Now, before I get into the meat and potatoes, 2 super quick things, guys. Number 1, if this is your first time on my channel, first of all, welcome. Second of all, make sure you smash that subscribe button for me, putting out tons of new videos every single week, talking about my thoughts on multifamily syndication, raising capital, deal execution, underwriting, and I give you guys walkthroughs on my projects. So if that's the kind of content you're looking for, make sure you subscribe. So let's get right into it and talk about the 3 key factors and how I think about them in my underwriting given the new multifamily and acquisition environment we're in right now. So starting with number 1, which is the exit cap rate. Now, here's the deal. Obviously, when we're underwriting multifamily, cap rate is a big deal, right? We got to figure out what the going cap rate is and what we think the going cap rate will be on the back end of our project. So whether we're doing a lot of stabilization work and then trying to refinance or sell, right? Regardless, our value of the asset is going to be determined on the cap rate. Now, what I've been doing recently, right, now that we have a completely new environment, I'm predicting we are going to have a little bit of decompression in the cap rates, probably in the next couple of months to 12, 18 months, right? I really do. Given the interest rates are so high and it doesn't look like they're going to stop increasing, and with the fact that we're going into what looks to be like a recession at this point, right? I really do believe that the cap rates are going to decompress. So with all of my underwriting right now, on my exit cap rate, right, where I'm trying to project what the value of the building will be in the future, I am adding about 1 to 1.5% to the cap rate, or 100 to 150 basis points to the cap rate. Now, it's certainly made our underwriting a lot less competitive in the current market, right? Because now in my underwriting, I have a much smaller exit value in the back end, but I really do think it's the right play, right? Again, as someone that's managing quite a bit of investor capital, I have to protect the downside. I have to protect my investors' capital. And I really do think we're heading in that direction. So even if I have to be more conservative on the upfront today by doing it, by projecting a lower value on the back end, I think that's 100% the right play. Factor number 2, that's somewhat similar to what I just talked about too, is the exit refinance rate, right? So in the scenario that you're doing a heavy stabilization or construction project, whatever it is, and then you're planning on doing a cash out refinance, I am underwriting a higher interest rate on the new loan when I do the cash out on the back end, right? So same thing as the cap rate, I'm basically adding about 1 to 1.5% of buffer on that exit cap rate, right? And this is key because if you're doing projects where you're planning on doing a cash out refinance, take out some investor capital and redistribute, right? This is key because that's going to limit the amount of cash you can cash out on your refi, right? Because obviously the higher the rate, then your debt service goes down, right? Then it becomes harder to match your debt service. So then you can basically pull out less equity / less cash out of that building, right? So if you're doing any cash out refinance projects, right, where that is, kind of your number 1 goal on the project, make sure to account for that, right? Because I do think the rate is going to be about 1% to 1.5% higher going into the future. And finally, the last factor I'm kind of playing around with is rent growth, right? And with rent growth, now a lot of markets have been experiencing absolutely tremendous rent growth, especially over the last 12 months, right? A lot of markets in the South and Southeast in particular have exploded in rent growth. I mean, even Boston, where I do most of my investing, has had very strong rent growth in 2022. Now, given that, I still would be pretty conservative with my projections for the future on the rent growth, right? Because even though those are the factors that have been playing out to date, I think, again, given where we're going, right, and the potential for a recession, I do think that's a tricky number to project in the future. Just because we've experienced this tremendous rent growth leading up to date, I don't necessarily think we're going to experience that magnitude moving forward. And of course, if you looked at underwriting models, you know that rent growth has quite a bit of impact both on future cash flows and of course back-end value. So again, a critical metric that you can't get overexcited about, right? You can't look at this past year's data and say, oh, you know, we've seen whatever, 10, 15, I mean, some percent rent growth, some markets have experienced way more. I would be very careful about that because I do think we're gonna see a change in that given where we are in the environment and with the interest rates. So hopefully that makes sense, guys. Again, make sure you evaluate these three metrics really carefully as you continue to underwrite deals in the multifamily space. Of course, if you have any questions, make sure you put them in the comments below.